What up, y'all? Okay, I'm not gonna waste any time. I'm gonna get right into this. Talking about the USAID, talking about Elon Musk, Donald Trump, his press secretary. I got a few videos to share with you, but before I start, I want to talk about this because I kind of want to just tell you where I'm going with this, and then we can go from there. So first of all, I don't know everything about USAID, but I know enough to know that it is a department that ultimately was funding a lot of things around the world, including in the United States. I also know that it funded Elon Musk, who didn't have a problem taking $1 million from it for his Starlink satellites. I also know that USAID ultimately was investigating Elon Musk. And I showed a little bit of evidence of that in a different video. Maybe I'll post it up here again real quick in the midst of me talking so that you can see it.
At least 5 inspector generals that were looking into Elon Musk's companies were fired by the Trump-Musk administration. These inspector generals, who are independent, protected by law, they are the people that find the waste, fraud, and abuse and found many of the cases of waste, fraud, and abuse that have been brought up today, fired because they were looking into Elon Musk. At the NLRB, the National Labor Relations Board, which is supposed to protect workers from getting their unions busted by folks like Elon Musk, made functionally broken by the so-called Department of Government Efficiency that really is the Department of Government Efficiency for Elon Musk, not for you.
But Elon fired, once he took over, he fired the people that were investigating his businesses and the corruption in there because things weren't adding up. So if it was corrupt in the first place and Elon took money from it, then that wouldn't that also make him corrupt, if that's how it works? It's interesting that it's only corrupt now that he's in charge and can take over it and ultimately try to find money that can be freed up so that he can get more money for himself and all of him and Trump's billionaire buddies, because that's ultimately where this is going, and everyone that's paying attention knows it. That's that piece of the situation. So I wrote down some notes because there's a lot of stuff in these videos. One of the first things that I'm going to be showing you is from the press secretary, this new press secretary, and how she's talking about how she's here to tell the truth, which we all know is a complete lie. She's there to tell her truth. And I think I've also done a video regarding that, how it's very easy for them. There was a situation where Caitlin Collins, there's a video of this. Maybe I can find it and I can load it in here too real quick.
Isn't it retaliatory in nature is the argument, because the reason that the AP was barred, which they said was because they're not using the phrase Gulf of America, they're using Gulf of Mexico in line with their standards. And so the question here is this setting a precedent that this White House will retaliate against reporters who don't use the language that you guys believe reporters should use? And how does that align with the First Amendment commitment that you were just talking about?
I was very upfront in my briefing on day one that if we feel that there are lies being pushed by outlets in this room, we are going to hold those lies accountable. And it is a fact that the body of water off the coast of Louisiana is called the Gulf of America. Apple has recognized that. Google has recognized that. Pretty much every other outlet in this room has recognized that body of water as the Gulf of America. And it's very important to this administration that we get that right, not just for people here at home, but also for the rest of the world.
And so what the explanation was of Levitt is that it is a fact, and this was her words, it is a fact that the Gulf of Mexico is now called, it is the Gulf of America. And that is a truth and a fact because I guess Trump says it, and Trump is the end all say all. And the fact that Google and a couple of other people have acknowledged it as so makes it a fact. So the reason that I'm saying that is because it leads me back to the video that I'm going to show you, where she's talking about how she will be upholding the truth and she will be telling everyone the truth. Well, it already is proven that her truth is skewed based on that example that I just gave you. So I'm going to have to really try to remind myself to put that video in there so that you can see what I'm talking about.
And that's exactly what this administration is doing. It's correcting the lies and the wrongs of the past 4 years, many of the lies that have been told to your faces in this very briefing room. I will not do that. But since you brought up Truth Seek, I would like to point out, while I vowed to provide the truth from this podium, we ask that all of you in this room hold yourselves to that same standard. We know for a fact there have been lies that have been pushed by many legacy media outlets in this country about this president, about his family, and we will not accept that. We will call you out when we feel that your reporting is wrong or there is misinformation about this White House. So yes, I will hold myself to the truth, and I expect everyone in this room to do the same.
A few other things that that the press is asking her is regarding this whole USAID thing. It's talking about how in a different conference, in a different briefing, they were talking about just basically what's happening, where's the money, or why they're taking money from this and that, are these people still going to get money, et cetera, et cetera. And in the process, she says that the Biden administration was spending money like a bunch of drunken sailors, which is the cause of the inflation. That's partially true, but not 100%. Number one, they weren't spending money like drunken sailors. They were spending money to help the people. We were getting checks due to the fact that everyone was struggling and suffering due to inflation. And unfortunately, the corporations felt that since we were getting checks and had more money, they could use it as an opportunity to raise their prices. Not to mention the fact that people that didn't deserve to be getting those funds from the COVID relief got funds. A lot of them are politicians, and some of them are even other businesses and big companies that should have never participated. I don't know all of them. You could look into it to see. But the bottom line is, whenever money is being used to bail out billionaires and to give them extra money, we never talk about how that's the cause of inflation. Yet prices are still going up. Prices went up like crazy during COVID. Why is that? Because businesses started price gouging for no damn reason other than greed. I remember Google went up. I remember during COVID, I got a notification that my Google, because I use the YouTube TV, my YouTube TV price was getting ready to go up in the midst of COVID. For real, bro? Like, heartless, just completely greedy. So anyway, back to the point. So we had that conversation. Then they have this thing where they're clever because they're dealing with a bunch of gullible, naive people. She used the term multiple times to imply that they're being good stewards of our tax dollars.
Of taxpayer money. So that's what this pause is focused on, being good stewards of tax dollars. And so this doesn't...
She literally made that comment multiple times. First of all, that term good stewards is a biblical term. So she's using that to try to activate and trigger the religious people to kind of convince them that they're on the right side, because she's using, and she had a cross, by the way, that was off to her right, our left, if we're looking at her. No, our right, her left. But she uses the term being good stewards of our tax dollars. She's lying right there, because they're not about to give us any of that free money. That freed up money is going towards their tax cuts so that they can give the billionaires more money. So she already is lying, and she's blaspheming because of the way that she's doing it. It's very sneaky. These people are snakes, but it'll resonate with people that call themselves Christians because they're ignorant to what's really happening, and they're trusting these people because they're using trigger words and phrases that Christians know, right? Even though the reality of the situation, so those Christians will go off thinking to themselves, see, I knew I made the right choice, because they're trying to be good stewards, because these people have the audacity to use phrases and ultimately God's name in vain in order to push their narrative and to push their greed and everything else that they're trying to do, which is actually corrupt. Right? Have you heard any plans about the fact that they're trying to give that money to the people? No, but what you do hear is that they're pausing all of the programs that are meant for the people. So how does that work, right? None of these pauses are affecting the billionaires and the millionaires. It's only affecting us common people. And therefore, it's okay. It's not causing any ruckus, because if it was, I guarantee those pauses would have been lifted a long time ago. Now we're going to go into the fact that she's talking about some of what the money was being spent on. This also is an issue where I'm raising this issue up with the Christians, because in that same breath that she says they're being good stewards, she also turns around and she makes a comment about some of it going to illegal DEI programs.
However, It is the responsibility of this president and this administration to be good stewards of taxpayer dollars. That is something that President Trump campaigned on. That's why he has launched DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency, who is working alongside OMB. And that's why OMB sent out this memo last night, because the president signed an executive order directing OMB to do just this. And the reason for this is to ensure that every penny that is going out the door is not conflicting with the executive orders and actions that this president has taken. So what does this pause mean? It means no more funding for illegal DEI programs. It means no more funding for the Green New scam that has cost American taxpayers tens of billions of dollars. It means no more funding for transgenderism and wokeness across our federal bureaucracy and agencies. No more funding for Green New Deal social engineering policies. Again, people who are receiving individual assistance, you will continue to receive that. And President Trump is looking out for you by issuing this pause because he is being good steward of your taxpayer dollars.
Explain to me, what is an illegal DEI program? Why is there no specifics on what makes it illegal? And what program was it? What was illegal about it again? Well, she's being honest, because she's already said, and they've already said, that they've canceled all DEI anything. Therefore, that would make it illegal if you were still doing it. So for her to stand at the press box and say illegal DEI programs, she's 100% being honest, right? But is it though? Do you get what I'm saying? Do you see how sneaky and snakish these people are? Okay, then I'm going to take you to a clip of Trump talking about all of this. Okay, because again, we're talking about being truthful and being good stewards, etc., all on the premises of Christianity, based on the trigger words, the cross on her neck, the way that they try to present themselves, even though their words and their actions say something different. But this is what they're trying to play. So Trump went out. Okay, the president of the United States went out in front of a group of people, held a whatever you want to call it, some type of, I'm gonna call it an event. It doesn't matter what the name of it was. He was out there in front of the microphone, in front of the cameras, and he's talking about what Doge is doing and the purpose and how they're doing a great job and what they found. He also includes the fact that they found, I forgot to mention, that press secretary also mentioned the $50 million that Doge found that was going towards condoms for Gaza, right? Crazy. So basically what they're saying is Hamas is that we're funding Hamas through USAID. And there's a bunch of ignorant people that now think that, right? So that's that piece. So Trump gets out there, he gets in front of the camera, and you can tell he's reading. So he starts talking about the same thing, echoing it, about the great job that Doge is doing. The fact that they cut 37 million from who? The World Health Organization, because we're no longer a part of it. The Levitt spoke on it too, the press secretary. She made that comment because Trump doesn't support it and he's pulling us out of that organization once again. And then he mentions the $50 million that we were about to send to Gaza for condoms, for Hamas to have condoms. And then he took it a step further. He went and said, and you know what they're doing with those condoms? They're making bombs with them. And can you imagine that?
We are merely looking at parts of the big bureaucracy where there has been tremendous waste and fraud and abuse. In that process, we identified and stopped $50 million being sent to Gaza to buy condoms for Hamas. 50 million. And you know what's happened to them? They've used them as a method of making bombs. How about that? We stopped an attempt to make an illicit payment for illegal alien resettlement. We canceled $181 million in DEI training contracts. This is just for the training of people in DEI, which has been terminated and completely terminated. And
Can you imagine that? He's reading this shit for the first time. He's reading it for the first time and he is in awe about what he's reading. Wow. They were about to do that. I'm such a good guy. Look what I just did for you. Except for the fact that it's not Gaza, it's not Hamas, and all of that is going to end up being explained down the road. Okay, he mentions the fact that there was an amount of money that was put on hold that was going to go to illegal alien resettlement. Now, this is the thing about the illegal alien resettlement thing. Wait, aren't you doing that right now? And you reopening or opening Guantanamo Bay, isn't that going to cost, do you think that would cost us more or less? I mean, we ultimately won't know because they didn't give an actual number during this specific thing here. Excuse me. But my thing is, number one, why didn't you specify how much was going to that illegal alien resettlement? And then number two, even if you did specify it, you're doing the same thing. You're going to do an illegal alien resettlement at Guantanamo Bay, which is going to cost us money because you got to take them there. So you got to have people there that are going to make sure that they're taken care of. That's going to take electricity. That's going to take food. That's going to take manpower. That's going to take gas. That's going to take electricity. That's going to take who knows what. So what did you really do? You stopped a fund that was going to do something that you were going to do anyway? Well, I guess that works for people that ain't really paying attention, right? Okay, moving on from the illegal settlement. Then Trump talks about the fact that he stopped $181 million in DEI contracts because DEI is done. But this is the thing. Again, from a Christian standpoint, and understanding that DEI stands for diversity, equity, and inclusion of all peoples, not just the LGBTQ community or the trans community. Like everybody, it's all inclusive. That's the whole point of diversity, equity, and inclusion. So how do you justify that as a Christian thing to do when you cancel all contracts that are helping to benefit diverse groups of people so that we are not being prejudiced towards a specific type of person, when the Bible and Jesus clearly commanded us as the greatest commandment to love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, and soul, and then love your neighbor as you love yourself. Clearly you love yourself because you're patting yourself on the back for doing all of this for the American people. But in reality, once again, we're doing this for the American people. We're freeing up all this money. Where has anybody heard a plan or a program that where this money is going to go once it's freed up? Or have we only heard that there's money being freed up because they're canceling all of these programs that help people here and abroad, which I also would argue is a Christian thing to do. Going back to the 50 million in condoms to Gaza, there's a lady that's going to ask Elon Musk about this in another video that I'm going to share. And basically she's going to say, well, now that it's been debunked, that's my word. She didn't say that. She was more polite. Now that it's been debunked, Elon, how are we supposed to trust what you're saying is true? Now that we know that it wasn't to Gaza and Hamas, but in actuality, it was to people that have a really bad situation of HIV in their community, in their country. And so America was doing the Christian thing to do, which was to send them condoms to try to help them to fight the spread of the disease. Similar to how Christian Americans were wearing masks during COVID to try to help stop the spread of that to each other, trying to have consideration for one another, because that's what people that love like God told us to do. And that's what people that actually have consideration like God would have us to do, as he did with us, that's what they would do. So again, I'm trying to understand how this would be a Christian move based on the circumstances and based on what we actually know. And a side note that has nothing to do with any of this, did you know that recently it was found out that Elon Musk had a plan to buy, for the government to buy $400 million in Tesla armored trucks, This is why it's a conflict of interest, and he shouldn't even be in the damn government. He's funded by the government already. This will not be the first time we hear of situations like this. And now they've backed off of it, and now they're just calling it trucks, armored electric trucks without the Tesla name, because they know that for the idiot, naive people that follow them, that's all they need. And they're too lazy and too invested and too prideful to actually want to look into it for themselves, because to do that, they would have to look in the mirror and acknowledge that they fucked up and that they are not as smart and as clever and as spiritually discerned as they thought they were. They held themselves at a standard. They're going to find out that they've been fooling themselves in their pride and arrogance, which the Bible says comes before the fall. Their pride and arrogance has brought them to this place that we are all having to deal with because of their stupidity. But back to the point. So the lady asks Elon this question, and Elon's answer to the question is, ultimately, in my words, I'm gonna put it up there for you to see it. Elon's response to the question is, well, I'm gonna say things that are not true, and they should be corrected. And he said, you don't bat it, nobody bats 1,000, but he says, is it good that we found out that it didn't go to Hamas, Gaza? Well, yeah, it's a little better, but still $50 million is a lot of money for condoms. And then he thought it was funny.
Mr. Musk, you said on X that an example of the fraud that you have cited was $50 million of condoms was sent to Gaza. But after fact-check this, apparently Gaza in Mozambique, and the program was to protect them against HIV. So can you correct the statements? It wasn't sent to Hamas, actually. It was sent to Mozambique, which makes sense why condoms was sent there.
Yeah.
And how can we make sure that all the statements that you said were correct, so we can trust what you say?
Well, first of all, some of the things that I say will be incorrect and should be corrected. So nobody's going to bat 1,000. I mean, we will make mistakes, but we'll act quickly to correct any mistakes. I'm not sure we should be sending $50 million worth of condoms to anywhere, frankly. I'm not sure that's something Americans would be really excited about. And that is really an enormous number of condoms, if you think about it. But if it went to Mozambique instead of Gaza, I'm like, okay, that's not as bad, but still, why are we doing that?
But the thing about it is, if you think about our overall budget as a whole and what we actually are spending money on, what our defense budget bill is, whatever other bills that you want to talk about, the amount of money that we spend to help other human beings in America and around the world is a small portion, a small fraction. So while they want to try to make it seem like it's such a big deal, it's not. And it is a better representation of how we are good Christians more than it would be anything else if people were actually about that life. But they're not. They're about pumping themselves up. They're about the power, the money, and the greed, point blank, period. So that's why I'm presenting these things, because the bottom line is somebody needs to call all this stuff out. And then finally, there's going to be a video that I'm going to show you of John Iadarola from the Damage Report, where he breaks it down way better than I have. And he talks about it, and he gives all of the information. And when he gave the information, it was before they held the news conference and talked to Elon himself.
The $50 million for condoms for Gaza thing was debunked like 2 seconds after it escaped from Carolyn Leavitt's mouth, but the right isn't gonna let a little thing like the truth stand between them and a distraction for their base. Take a look.
In that process, we identified and stopped $50 million being sent to Gaza to buy condoms for Hamas. 50 million. And you know what's happened to them? They've used them as a method of making bombs. How about that?
No, billions and billions going out the door for ridiculous programs that never should have been funded. It's a joke.
50 million towards condoms in Gaza for Hamas. It's absurd.
Yep. It is. It's absurd, actually. It's utterly absurd. And look, it is one thing to have like Karen Leavitt, who, when she lies to us, I can't even get that mad because her job title is she's a propagandist. That's what she's supposed to do. But then it gets fact checked. They know it's not true, and they're like, well, whatever. What am I supposed to like have respect for the people watching me speak? Respect for my vote? No, screw that. They're dumb peasants, and I'm gonna tell them convenient lies. That's what I'm gonna do, and that's what they did. Donald Trump knows it's not true. Alina Habba, to the extent that she can hold a thought in her head, knows that it's not true, and they just decided to say it again anyway. We already knew hours before all of that, USAID hadn't spent any money on condoms for the entire Middle East for the last 3 years, let alone $50 million for Gaza. But wait until you find out what appears to be the actual origin for the lie. So we didn't know this yesterday. We assumed that they just totally made it up. Now they've made up the fact that they keep saying it. But according to the HHS grants database, the Elizabeth Glaser Pediatric AIDS Foundation in Mozambique has received more than $83 million in funding since 2021. The money was assigned, yes, to reproductive health projects in 2 of the country's provinces, in Hambane and Gaza. Gaza being a region in Mozambique. Now, I'm not an expert on geography. It's possible that you're not either. They're not actually the same place, not actually in the Middle East. It's close though. If you take a look at this map, you basically just have to head south 6,000 kilometers.
That's not far.
And then you'll hit Gaza, Mozambique. And so and the thing is, we don't know for sure that this is where Carolyn Leavitt got her lie. We'll never know for sure, but it is just dumb enough to be the origin for this. It is,
of course it is,
perfectly stupid enough that this could be why they're telling that insane lie.
So this is the thing about it. You have, and Christians do this same stuff all the time, and I'm exhausted with it. I'm exhausted with it, and I'm not letting it get swept under the rug anymore. Why is it that when these people make these mistakes, why don't they hold a press conference, humble themselves, and be 100 with the people that follow them? As a Christian, that is the first thing that you should do, especially if you are a leader of any sort and you stand before a group of people. Why would you hide it and just move on as though nothing ever happened? And this is a regular behavior, a regular attribute that I have found within Christianity. You rarely find humble pastors willing to come to their congregation and say, you know what, last week I told you Black Lives Matter. And then the next week I told you all lives matter. And you know what? I was wrong. I did some more digging. I did some more praying. And I realized I didn't have the right information. I was letting my feelings get involved, and so on and so forth, right? Because anybody with any sense knows that all lives matter is an alt-right, white nationalist, white supremacist way of taking focus off of the people that are in need, which is exactly what it did, right? So anyway, my point is ultimately that's just one example, but my point in that is that Christians like to do things, make mistakes, such as telling everyone to vote for Trump, and then never address it. And instead what they do is what those people will do is they'll just preach around it, and they'll continue on talking about stuff like it never happened. It's not scripture. It's not scripture, and it gives a bad example of the way Christians are supposed to behave. The Bible specifically tells people, and I've said this before in other videos, people that bring their gifts to the altar, God tells them, put your gift at the altar and then go reconcile with your brother first. But it seems like a lot of these Christians have forgot that verse, and they never talk about doing that. They never talk about doing that while they have all these hateful people within their own political party that they tell people to vote for. They ultimately don't acknowledge any of that, but they're quick to point out all of the flaws and errors of all of the people that are in the opposing party, even though the opposing party is the one that's reaching out to all people, but they're the devil. because idiots choose to believe conspiracies instead of researching it and proving it to be the case. And